Hello, welcome to 5 Minute Lore. Today's video will be on 4 of the Dukes of Bretonnia. We'll be covering Adelhard de Lyonesse, Bohemian the Beastslayer, Theodoric de Brion, and Alberic de Bordelot specifically. Adelhard de Lyonesse was the Duke of Lyonesse, as his name implies. Adelhard is unique among the Dukes of Bretonnia because it's speculated he does not actually worship the Lady of the Lake, but instead another deity, that deity being the mighty god of the Empire Ulrich. Sorry, Sigmar. People blame his loyalty to Ulrich on the Norscan blood found in the region of Lyonesse. Despite his possible disloyalty to the lady, Adelhard is an amazing warrior, wielding a rune sword of elven engravings, shining golden armor, and a lion's pelt over his shoulder. Like any good warrior, he enjoys battle, as well as the feasting and festivities that happen after a victory. As I said earlier, he's a simple guy, so he stays away from politics. Unfortunately for him, Lyonesse is known for being a mini Game of Thrones. If the disputes between his nobles get too bad, he's known to just destroy both disputing parties and take their lands. Under Adelhard's reign, Lyonesse was attacked by the legendary Coronate Norscan Jarl Egil Styrbjorn, who ravaged his lands and was only stopped with the sacrifice of the brave Grail Knight Riolis the Wise. In the horrible end times, it was revealed that he had a son named Aldred, whom had alcohol problems. Adelhard ended up joining Malobod's side in the Bretonnian Civil War. He was granted pardon afterwards, however. Unlike Adelhard, Bohemian stayed loyal to Bretonnia to the end. Bohemian is a Duke of Bastogne and is directly related to Giles le Breton, the founder of Bretonnia. Bohemian's ancestry means he could challenge King Loan Leoncoeur for the throne of Bretonnia. However, Bohemian's not interested in rulership in the slightest. In fact, he didn't even originally plan on becoming Duke of Bastogne, only accepting the title when the king himself asked him to. As a result of his disinterest in ruling, the stewards he appoints to run the dukedom aren't always the best suited for the job, or even worse, have sinister intentions. Bohemian's true passion was battle, and he would travel all across Bastogne and Bretonnia seeking worthy opponents. He would particularly have a penchant for slaying beasts, as his title would imply. He actually managed to slay a dragon during his Grail quest. He would use the combination of its bones and bits of a meteor to form his famous beast mace. Yeah, he basically carries around the dragon tooth from Dark Souls. Unfortunately, his model does not reflect this and shows him carrying a lance. Bohemian also uses a shield blessed with the lady's power. The Warhammer Fantasy Wiki and the Lexicanium have excerpts from White Dwarf 287 that mention him using a sword blessed by the Lady of the Lake. However, I don't actually own the magazine, so I don't know how valid that is. Still, it'd be pretty impressive if the dude has experience of all 3 different weapons. Bohemian takes finding a worthy opponent very seriously. If an unworthy opponent tries to attack him, he'll just ignore them and stun them. He's constantly on the move in search of a new opponent to battle. I'm sure Khorne would have loved to have this guy on his team, considering how often he goes looking for fights. Interestingly, Bohemian has his own regiment of renown in Warhammer Total War, the Beastslayers of Bastogne. They're basically foot squires but with halberds for dealing with beasts and larger enemies. It's a cool little nod towards the character. In the horrible end times, Bohemian stays by Lewin's side and survives till the very end of the end times, fighting alongside his ancestor the Green Knight. All in all, Bohemian is a pretty awesome character, one of the few ones who benefited from that awful period known as the end times. Duke Theodoric de Brion is an interesting case. He's a great warrior like the other 2 dukes, but he enjoys slaughtering his enemies so much his men wonder if he's possessed by a spirit of war. He utilizes a battle axe in battle and typically fights on the front lines. It seems that he's reckless as he has a tendency to get wounded. When he's not fighting on the battlefield, he enjoys dabbling in music and poetry. Although he's not as talented at it as he is at battle, he's at least mediocre. Theodoric also seems to be a drunkard and adulterer, causing many problems with the married nobles of his land. Interestingly, the Slaaneshi demon Prince Azazel may have had a run-in with a relative of his, or at least a subject of his. The questing knight Guido de Brion went on a quest to kill Azazel to prove his worth to the lady. When Guido saw the demon, he pledged allegiance to him and was promptly executed. In the horrible end times, Theodoric was killed by some blood knights. While Duke Alberic de Bordelot isn't as obscure as the other dukes who are showing up in the Total War Warhammer series, he's still interesting enough for me to include him in this video. His lore outside the game contrasts how he's displayed in it a little, but to be fair, that could just be because he has very little mentions. Alberic is well known for being a powerful and courageous man of high expectations for his knights. As a result, he has a small but elite household, and isn't very popular. Alberic had wanted to go on a Grail quest for much of his life, but while on his errantry, his father passed away, and he was forced to become the Duke of Bordelot before he could finish it. He has trouble finding someone who's capable of ruling his kingdom while he finishes his quest. Eventually, he thought he had found someone, his son. Sadly, his son had gone off on his own Grail quest. Because of his old age, Alberic has begun urgently searching for a competent steward to rule in his place while he quickly finishes his quest. It seems in Total War Warhammer, he found someone to run it while he goes on his errantry in Lustria of all places. Alberic holds respect for both Manon, the god of the sea, and the Lady of the Lake. That's because Bordelot is split between worship of the two, so Alberic and the dukes before him have had to pay homage and respect to both. Finally, in the Knights of the Grail roleplay book, they have a knight of Alberic say he stayed with him for 3 years and hated every second of it, but that nothing scares him anymore. In the horrible end times, Alberic isn't even brought up. There are more Dukes of Bretonnia, but I decided to settle on these 4 for now. In the future, there could be more videos about the other dukes, as the research for this video is actually really fun. And while there's nothing specifically saying it, it sounds like Theodoric has some form of chaos corruption, or at the very least, he's just a big fat butthead. I really hope CA gives Alberic an older look to line up with what little lore we have of him. I don't think they will, but it'd be nice. That said, besides the whole appearance thing, he's pretty awesome, and I'm really hoping we get Bohemian as a DLC in the future. If you like this video, I recommend you go further down the Warhammer rabbit hole.